Chief Social Work Advisor for the Scottish Government, and really delighted to be here this morning to talk about accessible housing. What I really wanted to talk about today was the independent review of adult social care, which was completed just before the new year, really, in Scotland, and has been debated in Parliament on the 16th of February. And it's commonly known these days as the Feely Review, chaired by Derek Feely, and with a number of members on it, including a proportion of people who are involved in social services and have lived experience of using services. The Feely Review really, I think, if you haven't read it, it's absolutely worth a read. But really, in a very short space of time, has managed to look at the landscape across Scotland and really think quite deeply about how adult social care should be organised in the future, and to challenge a lot of the notions that we have had in Scotland about the way in which care is organised. So I think what's really important for this conference and in this context is the idea of a paradigm shift that challenges that prevailing narrative about social care support, and that says that basically we need to move to a position where social care support is sustainable and not constantly in crisis and confined to the margins of society. So social care support is very much about helping people to live their lives and enabling and empowering them to be citizens within society and to fulfil all of their potential. So Derek Feely and the team listened to many people, including people with lived experience of care, unpaid carers, and the staff who work within adult social care, and they have identified clearly the areas where we need to find different solutions in Scotland. So on the next slide, basically you can see some of what they've outlined there around the old thinking and the new thinking. So it's not about social care being a burden on society, but it is about social care as an investment. And definitely social care about enabling rights and capabilities, not about managing need. And I think that lesson, that voice was very clear throughout the whole of the review. There's also quite a lot in the review about prevention and anticipation, and about one of the issues I think in social care at the moment is the way in which we ration social care. Obviously, often includes eligibility criteria, which basically say unless you get to a certain level of need, you don't get to the threshold where you are able to access care. And what Feely really did was talk about the need to provide support at as early a level as possible in order to maximise people's potential and their ability to participate and their ability to live their lives. And I think that message came across loud and clear throughout the review. The review is about adult social care, so it's about services that traditionally are about people who have got disabilities, people with learning disabilities, people with drug and alcohol problems, mental health problems, and older people. But really people who require support in order to be able to live their lives. Another key theme was really about the need to move from what is often seen as a competitive market-driven environment, and sometimes seen as particularly procurement is about driving down cost, to actually move to one where everybody is collaborating together in order to get the right outcomes, and that we really need to work particularly collaboratively with the third sector and other parts of the sector in order to provide the best innovation and types of service and support that we require. And for me, housing is a really important part of this. But what the review recognises that what matters most to people is not only their environment in which they live, but also the relationships that they have with the people round about them, and that's their friends and their family, and the people that they may work with, for example, but also the people who offer support to them and assist them. So I think it's really important. We have a quite traditional way of considering services in Scotland at the moment, and we've seen in the last year, certainly with the impact of the pandemic, the whole issue about care homes rising to the surface, and the fact that many elderly people live in a care home environment, and we've seen the impact of the pandemic on that. So really, I think it needs to be thought about more about supporting independent living and maximising that independent living around the person's needs and wishes and desires. So this takes a different kind of approach. And one of the key issues that has been identified in Scotland is the lack of consistency across the country. That if you're eligible for care in one area and you move to another local authority area, actually you will have to start again at the bottom of the process, the assessment process, and you may not be eligible for the same level of support that you were eligible for before. So there's something here about consistency, about transparency, and about fairness. And the next slide, I tried to just identify some of the themes that I think are where we see housing is really important. And for me, housing and accessible housing is absolutely the building block to where we need to go in the future. And we need to think about more flexible options for people that provide them with environments that mean that they can live on their own independently, if that's what they want to do, or with others independently in a more flexible way. So what Derek Feely says is that the National Care Service needs to work very much more effectively with other public services. And there's two levels to this. One is at a local level, the Integrated Joint Boards, so IJBs, are responsible for developing what's called strategic commissioning plans. And I think maybe Julie Murray's already spoken to you about some of this. And they will have, at the moment, they have direct responsibility for agreeing the plan and then asking others to procure and set up the services. The proposal in the Feely review is that they become responsible for not only agreeing the plan and working with others, so that the lived experience voice is very strong in that. It's part of the board that's in the local level. And I would say also that this is where housing absolutely needs to come in those plans and in the ideas and the collaboration around what kind of alternatives it might be available for people at a local level, and how we might be able to help people to live longer, more independently, in a way that they want to live. And so for me, housing is really important as part of that local plan that translates a lot of what we're trying to aim for into a local plan. The National Care Service will be accountable to ministers, is the proposal at the moment, and that the money will then be channeled through the National Care Service into localities. At the moment, the money goes into health boards and into councils, and then it goes to the Integrated Joint Board, and then they ask others to commission the services. So the proposal here is that the IJBs become the main vehicle for delivery at a local level, working alongside their colleagues in housing and third sector colleagues and lots of other people who are involved in care at a local level. But at a national level, we create a National Care Service, which will, excuse me, have responsibility for the more complex care services at a national level. So will in itself perhaps commission some really services that where the investment levels are high, where complexity needs are high, and where it's difficult for maybe a small local area to be able to provide a service. But also they will hold to account the local areas, the Integrated Joint Boards, which are also known as health and social care partnerships, to account for how they design and deliver services for people in the future. So for me, housing needs to be involved at that national level. In the board of the National Care Service, for example, may well needs to build those links in with housing, as does the team that manage and are accountable to the Minister for the National Care Service, but also then housing needs to be linked really clearly in at local level. And we need to think about the investment in housing adaptation and the investment in purpose-built housing for people with additional needs. So I think that the future is very much about how we work together better across the boundaries of health, social care and housing, and how we use the expertise that we undoubtedly have, particularly in the people who have lived experience and know exactly what it is that they want in order to be able to live their lives as fully as they can. So I think quite an exciting possibility, an exciting proposal, and really important that it's embedded at that local level, but also that there's that national oversight. So I do see that as an opportunity for housing to be involved in both those arenas. And my final slide is really just saying that some of the key themes around a national care service. So why do we need it? I think the conclusion from the Feely review has been about the need for consistency. So that doesn't mean everything's the same, but it does mean that there's some transparency and openness, and actually there's an understanding about the levels of support that people get across the country, that we need to drive improvement. And one of the issues has been doing everything 32 times over, sometimes more than that. There are over 2,000 providers in the adult social care world. Actually makes it difficult to work around that sense of improvement and to have that benchmark about where we are and to think about how we improve the way in which services are delivered, the way in which people are involved in that, and the whole drivers around improvement on a year-on-year basis. It's very much, it's not about moving back to social care being provided here, health being provided here and housing there. It's actually, can we bring all of this together? And I think it's really important that we remember that the Public Bodies Act, which brought about the last major reform in social care, created the IGIBs and the health and social care partnerships. And for me, the key line in that was about services being built around people. And that's, to me, is the most important part of this. If we are not making things better for people, then we are not getting it right. And for me, that's the opportunity we now have with the Adult Social Care Review. There are a number of other things that are mentioned in the Feely report, like having a national standard, set of national standards and terms and conditions to overcome the whole issue that we have within the sector around low pay, and about bringing national oversight and accountability. Again, goes back to that consistency and back to that improvement piece. But at every level in the Feely review, basically, it talks about absolutely the voice of lived experience built in to the decision-making process, both at a local level and at a national level. So this is not about doing things to people. This is about working with people to fully empower them and to work with them to provide services, housing, a plan, a support plan that actually helps people to live the best life that they possibly can, based on trusting relationships and collaboration and working together rather than working in isolation. So for me, that gives us a huge opportunity in Scotland. Where we're at with the review is there was a debate in Parliament on the 16th of February. The Cabinet Secretary for Health accepted the recommendations of the review. As some of you will have seen and know, there's a small thing of a Scottish election happening very soon. So nothing more will happen with the report probably until we've gone through the election period and the government, whichever government comes back and decides how they want to implement the Feely review. So I would say that the next 5 or 6 months really will be key and critical to a national conversation about how we take this forward. And I would very much hope that housing as part of taking this forward is absolutely central to helping to redesign the way we think and the way that we want to deliver and support services and support people in our communities. So a big opportunity as far as I'm concerned. Thank you.